In today's world, where medical breakthroughs and nutritional guidance are more accessible than ever, it's surprising to learn that something as invisible as loneliness is quietly becoming one of the most dangerous threats to our health, especially for those over 60. While obesity has long been recognized as a major public health concern with links to heart disease, diabetes, and premature death, recent research has revealed that chronic loneliness can be even more lethal, with effects that quietly damage the body and mind in ways that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Loneliness doesn't just feel bad. It triggers a cascade of biological stress responses that wear down the immune system, elevate blood pressure, and increase inflammation throughout the body, leading to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and cognitive decline. For seniors, especially those living alone or experiencing reduced mobility, this silent epidemic is often ignored or brushed aside as an unavoidable part of aging. But the truth is that prolonged isolation creates a toxic internal environment where mental health deteriorates, motivation plummets, and even the will to care for oneself fades. Studies show that loneliness can increase the risk of early death by up to 50%, which is a greater mortality predictor than obesity or smoking in some populations. Yet it receives a fraction of the attention and resources it deserves. What makes loneliness particularly insidious is how it feeds itself. The longer someone feels isolated, the more likely they are to withdraw further, avoid social opportunities, and lose the confidence to engage, creating a vicious cycle that becomes harder to escape as time passes. In seniors, this is compounded by factors like retirement, the loss of a spouse or close friends, and physical limitations that reduce the frequency of outings or interactions. Even when surrounded by family or caregivers, many older adults still experience a profound emotional disconnection if they don't feel truly seen, valued, or heard, which is why combating loneliness requires more than just casual company. It demands meaningful connection and emotional engagement. The damaging effects of loneliness aren't just emotional, they're physiological. Chronic social isolation disrupts sleep patterns, lowers pain tolerance, diminishes cognitive function, and can even accelerate the progression of diseases like Alzheimer's. The human brain is wired for connection, and without it, the body interprets isolation as a chronic threat, keeping the nervous system in a constant state of low-grade fight or flight that eventually wears down every major organ. In fact, lonely seniors are more likely to visit the emergency room, require longer hospital stays, and are less likely to follow medical instructions or maintain healthy routines, not because they are incapable, but because the drive to care is eroded by emotional emptiness. This is why understanding the full impact of loneliness, and more importantly, how to reverse it, is so critical for healthy aging. Unlike obesity, which can often be managed with diet and exercise alone, loneliness requires intentional social strategies and psychological reinforcement to truly heal. Seniors who regularly interact with others, share their experiences, and engage in purposeful activities have been shown to enjoy stronger immunity, better mental clarity, and even a higher level of physical function well into advanced age. But breaking the cycle of loneliness requires a structured, supportive approach that rebuilds connection not just with others, but also with one's own identity and sense of purpose. Many older adults struggle to rediscover who they are after major life transitions, and without a role, a routine, or a reason to get out of bed, isolation deepens. This is why the solution isn't just inviting someone over for tea once in a while. It's about reweaving the social fabric of a senior's life in a way that sustains engagement, fosters trust, and gives them a reason to feel emotionally alive again. From rebuilding old friendships and volunteering to joining support groups, or simply rediscovering passions that bring joy, the path out of loneliness starts with small, consistent steps that reignite a sense of belonging and importance. And perhaps most powerfully, it begins with the realization that feeling lonely doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means you're human, and your body and soul are asking to be seen, to be heard, and to be connected again in a world that too often moves too fast to notice the quiet pain of those left behind. This need for deep, meaningful connection becomes even more vital when we recognize how loneliness actually changes the brain's chemistry, affecting everything from how we process memories to how we regulate emotion. Studies in neuroscience have shown that prolonged social isolation can shrink the hippocampus, a region of the brain associated with learning and memory, while increasing activity in the amygdala, which governs fear and anxiety, essentially rewiring the brain for survival rather than joy. Seniors experiencing chronic loneliness often report greater sensitivity to perceived slights or rejections, which can make them even more hesitant to reach out or trust others, creating a kind of emotional armor that protects in the short term but suffocates in the long run. What's worse is that this emotional barrier becomes internalized, leading to a loss of self-worth that makes social interaction feel not only challenging but undeserved. This is why it's not enough to simply suggest more socialization or push seniors into group settings without understanding the psychological wounds loneliness leaves behind, wounds that must be gently acknowledged and healed if real, lasting connection is to be restored. Many people don't realize that loneliness isn't just about being physically alone. It's about feeling emotionally disconnected, even in the presence of others, which is why efforts to combat it must go deeper than surface-level activities. Emotional loneliness, the kind that gnaws at the heart even when someone is surrounded by family, comes from a lack of authentic interaction, where one's thoughts, feelings, and stories are truly heard and valued. Seniors often express that what they miss most isn't just company, but companionship, someone to laugh with, to share a memory with, or simply to sit in silence and understand. When that depth of connection is missing, even regular visits or check-ins can feel hollow, which is why creating space for genuine conversation, emotional validation, and shared experiences is so essential to healing. And it's not only seniors who must act. Families and caregivers play a crucial role in bridging the gap, especially by learning to listen with empathy, to offer attention without distraction, and to show that their aging loved ones are not just part of the background, but central to the family's emotional life. What makes this conversation even more urgent is the fact that technology, while offering unprecedented convenience and communication, has in many ways made loneliness worse, not better. Seniors may receive frequent messages or photos on a phone, but digital interaction often lacks the warmth, nuance, and physical presence that the human brain craves. A text message can never replace the comfort of a hug, the sound of a familiar voice, or the shared laughter over a meal. In fact, over-reliance on technology without real-world interaction can exacerbate feelings of isolation, especially when seniors are less tech-savvy or feel left out of the fast-paced, digital culture that surrounds them. They may watch from the sidelines as their children and grandchildren live digitally connected lives, all while longing for a moment of real connection, a touch, a conversation that goes deeper than "how are you?" followed by an automatic "I'm fine." This emotional starvation is why loneliness is so dangerous. It's not just a mental burden, but a form of slow physiological suffocation, where every system in the body begins to function at less than full capacity because the emotional spark that keeps it alive has dimmed. But the encouraging truth is that this process is not irreversible. Just as loneliness can deteriorate health, connection can restore it, sometimes even faster than we expect. When seniors are given not only the opportunity, but the encouragement and support to rebuild emotional bridges, whether through clubs, group therapy, shared hobbies, or even reconnecting with estranged family members, they begin to come alive again, often reporting increased energy, improved sleep, sharper thinking, and an overall sense of purpose that makes life feel vibrant again. And all of this begins with awareness, recognizing the signs of loneliness not just in others, but in ourselves, and committing to addressing it not as a personal failing, but as a shared human condition that deserves compassion, attention, and healing. For some seniors, the path back to connection may begin with something as small as a phone call, a walk to a local park, or even a short conversation with a neighbor. But these small actions, repeated consistently, begin to rebuild the internal scaffolding of connection that loneliness once eroded. And perhaps even more importantly, they begin to remind the lonely person that they matter, that their voice is important, and that their presence in this world still has value, meaning, and impact, no matter what stage of life they are in. This rediscovery of worth and significance becomes the cornerstone for healing from loneliness, but must be nurtured within a framework of consistent and meaningful interaction, not random or performative gestures. When seniors experience genuine, regular engagement, whether through storytelling circles, community meal programs, mentorship activities, or spiritual gatherings, they begin to rebuild their identity not as isolated individuals, but as contributors with wisdom, humor, and insight to share. The societal tendency to view aging as a period of decline instead of as a wellspring of experience is one of the most damaging contributors to the epidemic of senior loneliness. Too often, older adults are spoken about rather than spoken to, treated as burdens instead of blessings, and positioned at the edge of family decisions rather than at the center, where their accumulated knowledge and lived history can guide and enrich those around them. This marginalization feeds a silent despair that worsens isolation and creates a sense of invisibility that even the most outwardly cheerful senior may be struggling with privately. For many, the only moments of being seen come through medical visits or transactional errands, which reinforce the sense of being a problem to be solved rather than a soul to be celebrated. That's why emotional nourishment must be intentional. It must reflect a genuine desire to understand the stories, struggles, and triumphs that have shaped each senior into who they are today. One of the most overlooked strategies in combating loneliness is the power of reminiscence therapy, where seniors are encouraged to share memories, photos, and life lessons not just for personal catharsis, but for communal learning. This exchange of wisdom not only validates the senior's identity, but helps younger generations connect more deeply with their roots, fostering multi-generational bonding that benefits all. Grandchildren who listen to a grandparent's account of childhood adversity, war, love, or survival gain not just knowledge, but resilience, empathy, and appreciation, qualities that deepen their own human experience. And in the act of remembering, seniors reconnect with the parts of themselves that were vibrant, courageous, and full of hope, reigniting a sense of agency that counters the passivity loneliness imposes. Another surprisingly effective way to reduce isolation is through the cultivation of purpose, which may shift in form but never disappears with age. Whether it's mentoring a younger person, volunteering, starting a small creative project, or even caring for a pet or a garden, the act of being needed and responsible can dramatically elevate mood and emotional well-being. Purpose gives structure to the day, clarity to actions, and a reason to get up in the morning. Three things that loneliness steals so insidiously. Even simple routines, like preparing a healthy breakfast to share with a neighbor, writing a short note to a friend, or participating in a community cleanup event, reinforce a rhythm of interaction that strengthens emotional stamina and reduces the cognitive distortions that often accompany loneliness. And while not every senior has easy access to community spaces, the development of inclusive environments, whether physical or virtual, is critical to ensuring no one is left behind. For example, libraries, senior centers, churches, and even local coffee shops can serve as vital hubs of reconnection when they are designed to be welcoming, accessible, and inclusive of older adults' unique needs. Technology, too, can be harnessed in a more meaningful way through guided digital literacy programs, intergenerational tech help sessions, and video calling systems tailored for simplicity and ease of use, so that seniors can connect not just to loved ones far away, but to entire communities of peers who share their interests and life stage. When seniors begin to experience the ripple effects of consistent engagement, better mental focus, improved appetite, more restful sleep, decreased blood pressure, and fewer stress hormones coursing through the body, they often express a sense of transformation that feels not only physical but spiritual. It is the difference between merely existing and fully living, between feeling like a forgotten page in a book and realizing that their chapter still matters, still teaches, still moves the story forward. And as this transformation unfolds, the ripple touches those around them. Family members feel closer, community members feel inspired, and healthcare workers report less burnout because they're no longer working in a vacuum of despair, but within an ecosystem of connection and care. This is why loneliness must be addressed not just as an individual experience, but as a social epidemic, one that requires a shift in mindset at every level of society, from policy and media representation to local community planning and interpersonal behavior. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this healing process is that it doesn't require expensive treatments or elaborate programs. It requires only the courage to reach out, the humility to listen, the patience to sit with someone in silence until the words come, and the willingness to keep showing up even when progress is slow. This consistency, this human presence, becomes the antidote to loneliness that no pill, supplement, or doctor's visit can replicate. Because at its core, what seniors long for most isn't perfection, entertainment, or grand gestures. It's the quiet, steady reminder that they are loved, remembered, and deeply valued for who they are right now, not just who they once were. When we begin to understand the true depth and reach of loneliness in seniors, not as a fleeting emotion, but as a chronic, invisible condition that infiltrates every aspect of health and quality of life, we start to see why it's far more dangerous than many physical diseases. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, cognitive decline, depression, and even early mortality at rates comparable to or worse than obesity or smoking. But beyond the statistics lies the real tragedy, a quiet epidemic that leaves countless older adults sitting in silent rooms, their potential untapped, their wisdom unshared, their spirits dimmed by lack of meaningful connection. And this tragedy is entirely preventable. The 5 steps to healing from this condition are rooted not in expensive interventions, but in simple, powerful shifts that any of us can help initiate. Recognizing the early signs of isolation, validating the emotional needs of seniors, rebuilding purpose and routine, fostering opportunities for contribution, and ensuring regular, heartfelt interaction. These aren't abstract theories. They are tangible, doable changes that can transform not only individual lives, but entire families and communities. For example, imagine a senior who's no longer physically able to work or drive, someone who once managed a household or led a career, now feeling forgotten by the very world they helped build. That person may not say out loud that they're lonely, but it will show in subtle ways. Missed meals, declining hygiene, poor sleep, a lack of interest in hobbies, or even unexplained physical pain. These manifestations are real and deserve the same attention as any visible illness. And yet, far too often, they're dismissed as just part of aging, which only deepens the isolation. But when that same person is re-engaged, perhaps by being asked to teach a grandchild how to cook an old family recipe, or to share stories during a weekly video call, or to participate in a local walking club or senior crafting circle, the change can be stunning. They begin to sit taller, speak louder, laugh more, and eat better. These are not coincidences. They're the biological and emotional effects of connection. The brain begins to rewire, stress hormones reduce, happy hormones increase, and the immune system strengthens. Loneliness, left untreated, corrodes the body and spirit from the inside out. But connection has the power to reverse that decay. One of the most moving examples comes from senior communities in places like Okinawa, Japan, where elders are revered, actively included in daily life, and given roles of responsibility and respect. These elders often live longer, healthier lives not because they have perfect diets or access to advanced healthcare, but because they're deeply woven into the social fabric. They matter. They are seen. And that is the healing power we must bring to every community of aging individuals around the world. But it doesn't have to start with governments or health systems. It starts with each of us. It starts with the daughter who takes 5 minutes each day to call her father and ask about his day. It starts with the grandson who sends his grandmother a letter and asks her to tell him a story from her youth. It starts with the neighbor who invites the retired couple next door over for coffee or a shared walk. These simple gestures, when made consistently and with sincerity, are nothing short of life-saving. And for those seniors watching this, please know that your presence in this world still matters. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. Your story is not over, and your value has not diminished. There are people out there who want to hear from you, learn from you, and walk alongside you, not just out of obligation, but because your life is rich with meaning. Don't let the myth of aging as decline silence your voice or close your heart. Instead, let it be a new chapter where wisdom leads and connection heals. And to the families and caregivers listening, your role is sacred. Your patience, your outreach, your presence can literally change the course of someone's health and happiness. Don't wait for holidays or emergencies to show up. Do it today. Make the call, schedule the visit, invite the conversation. Because the truth is, when we help a senior feel seen and connected, we're not just saving their life. We're enriching our own. We're building a culture of care, a future of empathy, and a society where aging is not feared but honored. That is what we strive for here at Healthful Living 60+, where every story matters, every life is sacred, and every senior deserves to live with dignity, joy, and deep human connection. If this message touched you, share it with someone you care about. Let's work together to end the epidemic of loneliness, one meaningful connection at a time.